Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Spoilerin time. And guess what? We've got a jam-packed show today because Brian Brushwood fled from his house this morning like a superhero to the theater just to watch Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So we could talk about that. That's going to be the last one we talk about.
It's adorable that you would call me a superhero for fleeing, because that's not what my wife said as I admonished, as I bolted from all my obligations. I'm like, oh, I got to watch Winter Soldier.
Sorry,
Bye.
honey. It's my job.
Too many, 1,600 people are depending on me to watch this movie, buddy.
We're also going to talk about the premiere of Game of Thrones, which a lot of people tried to watch on HBO Go, some of which they did it successfully. And we're going to talk about Cosmos, which you can get over the air or at fox.com. You know what? We forgot in the pre-show, we should finish the show with The Shield, episode 6 and 7.
Nope, that's great. That's great. I love the book club aspect of what we're experiencing with The Shield, and I look forward to jumping back in, because I think you finally caught up to where I guess my last lap, I got all the way up into season 2, so you're almost caught up to where I am.
Yeah. Okay, good. Then let's start off with Cosmos. I'll go first, Brian. This is the second week in a row where I've unreservedly liked the episode, and I think it might even be my favorite episode, although the last two are pretty close.
I liked last episode better, mainly because there was no weirdness. Like this one structurally. And I don't know how much of it was the fact that I went back to watching appointment viewing. I watched it live over the air. This one had a lot of the same things I liked about the show from last week. It had a narrative that I was unfamiliar with before. It told a new story. It told a new aspect. It took extremely complicated ideas. The whole mass spectrography, the idea of explaining in a primetime Science Channel style thing that here's why we could tell what elements are on different planets or different stars or whatever. I thought it did a fantastic job of that. However, it was very clumsily executed. There was like the whole weirdness where like throughout the whole episode that would randomly flip to inverse colors and be like, oh, what was that?
Oh, okay.
And then at the end, it was like, that is a Gershwin song played to make a point about different light spectrums. Also, credits, we're done.
I don't think that bit worked.
No.
I had no idea why they were doing it. And then when they brought it all together at the end, I was like, oh.
Well, what's funny is like in the middle of being kind of like pinchy face, like, oh, that's what you're going for. They suddenly and the show's over. like there was no buildup, no anything. It was just that aspect was poorly handled.
The fact that they talked about absorption lines and the fact that they got into quantum mechanics and did it on primetime TV, I think in a way that didn't totally go over everybody's heads and alienate them, I found astounding. And that's why this is at least my second favorite of the series so far. I also felt it was just a very even-handed episode. Otherwise, I thought they finally have figured out how to use those cartoons to good effect, which is you don't have them say a lot.
Yes.
Don't put whole segments in there. Just pepper them in. I hardly even noticed they were there at first because I'm like, oh, those are just your flashbacks showing something that you couldn't show otherwise.
I'll tell you what, let me go a step farther. This was also far and away, this was the episode that made me see what Neil deGrasse Tyson was capable of as a host if he's not busy trying to do an impression of Carl Sagan. Like there were moments.
Do you think that was dogging him a little bit in the back of his mind? I could see why it would.
Oh, I'll tell you what, like watching it this time, like those moments where he totally owned it. And keep in mind, this is definitely colored. You're talking to a guy who just hosted a show on the same network, by the way, on National Geographic, and found himself doing what he thought other people wanted him to do. And there were brief moments when I was able to own stuff the way I wanted to say it. And there were those moments I could see with Neil deGrasse Tyson where it's like he's sitting there messing around on the keyboard, and this kind of cheesy moment where they kick him off and he's like, all right, come on over here. Let me tell you. When he spoke earnestly with me as a viewer, like I believed it and I felt there, and I was like, oh crap, why can't the whole show be like this? With him speaking honestly, not trying to speak poetically. Like I wish there was more of that. And all of a sudden I believed it's the kind of thing that if there's to be a season 2 of Cosmos, I would love to see more of that. I want to see Neil deGrasse Tyson's own personal vision of this, not a reimagining of Carl Sagan's.
Yeah, I think there's two things. One is laboring under Carl Sagan's shadow cannot be easy.
No.
Especially when you're new to hosting this show and you're still trying to find your voice in there, and you've got this huge voice to combat with. So that will probably get better if it gets to season 2, just by the fact that he's like, okay, I've got this under my belt. Now I know where to go with it. Also, this episode set him up for success because it's astrophysics. That's his discipline.
That's true.
So this hits a little closer to home and gives him a little of a leg up, I think.
Yeah, I would say I would place this as my second favorite, but I'm not going to begrudge you if you think it's your favorite.
I really liked last week's episode, so I'm not sure I want to put it over there, but I think they're closer for me. It sounds like than they were for you. The couple clunky things, they used the prism shot in front of the telescope like one or two too many times. And there was the weird shot where there was one of the ones where they had the infrared thing come out of nowhere. I think it might've been the first time. He's in a redwood forest. And then next time you see him, he's like halfway around the world.
20 minutes later. And it's like
what?
Watching that, I'm like, what was that?
Why are you there? Why are you in the what? Why? Because everything's so motivated usually. That kind of threw me out. But minor quibbles for me. I thought it was great.
Yeah, in general, I would say people are pointing out that, of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson was the host of Star Talk Radio for the longest time, and he had a lot of experience.
No, we're not saying he's inexperienced.
No.
We're saying this show.
Exactly. He had experience being Neil deGrasse Tyson, who spoke in a very down-to-earth, as though the two of us had just gotten done doing a shot of vodka together. He's able to explain, all right, now let me wrap your mind around this, and blow my mind with another space fact or whatever. That's not the guy he's playing in Cosmos. He's playing the guy who's accepted the mantle from Carl Sagan, and I think it is a less well-fitting role than the one he had in Star Talk Radio, and I'd rather see him play Star Talk Radio Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Well, and frankly, I think the person I know who has felt this the most similarly recently is Mr. Brian Brushwood, because, he's been doing Scam School for years, but suddenly he had to do a different kind of show.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that he hasn't been great at Scam School or he doesn't know how to do the show, but when you take on a brand new show, right, you got a whole new voice to find.
Exactly. Well, and again, it's difficult to separate myself from the consumer of this media from the person who can very much relate with the difficulties of discovering your new voice in a new medium and all that.
All right. This is my signal that we're moving to Game of Thrones. It's kind of a G. It's supposed to be a G. Doesn't really look like a G. It's also backwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the record, spoiler alert, we loved it. Can we say that?
I watched it twice.
Yeah.
And the first season, I watched every episode twice because I would watch it. Then a couple of days later, I'd get an itch to watch it. Second season, I felt like I should watch it twice just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Last season, I didn't.
Yeah.
And last night, I watched it and I'm like, Eileen, do you mind if I just I put it on? I mean, I got to fold my clothes and stuff, but I just want to have it on again, And I just found it amazing.
Yeah. It was interesting because it's been, of course, almost a year since we last saw these characters, and sitting around with Bonnie, Bonnie's all concerned about like, oh, well, do we remember this or that or the other thing? Or how did we end last time? There was the red wedding. And I was like, well, there's the red wedding. And then they did like one extra episode with probably something supernatural because that's what they like to do at the very end.
It was the hanging out in prison talking to the Onion Knight episode.
There you go. That's what it was. But regardless, the point is it didn't even matter that I didn't remember all that stuff because I was still caught all the way in. It's like they do such a good job of instantly cueing you on where you should feel about everything. The biggest weird thing to me was I guess they replaced the actor for Dario. What's his name?
Oh, right. Yeah. The guy who's out with Khaleesi in the desert. Yeah, Dario.
Like the other guy looked like, I don't know, like Middle Eastern. He had like an eccentric look to him. Whereas this guy looks like it looks like half the Stark family.
I thought it was a different character because it's a different actor.
Yeah.
So it took me a second. Yeah.
Do we know why we lost him?
I don't know. I did not look that up. I assume it was like an actor was unavailable somehow for some reason.
Yeah. People are saying they're calling him Dario Cumberbatch. Was that who they
I bet if we did a Google, I bet somebody could Google it for us. And then we would know.
So let's talk through things we liked and didn't like. First of all, great job of reacquainting us with all of the different fronts in all this. It was great. To me, I don't know why, and keep in mind, I just turned 39, so I'm creeping up on 40. I loved the fact that they kept pointing out that Jaime Lannister is 40, and I just kept thinking like, man, is this what I'm going to look like when I'm 40? I'm going to be Jaime Lannister or whatever.
Nice, yeah. I mean, I'll be one-handed, but
whatever.
That just makes it fair. I also loved the dialogue. Whoever wrote this episode, and I, fell down on the job there too. Dialogue was still with, recognizably Game of Thrones, but at the same time, it was also witty. Like there were nice little humorous bits, and Jaime had some of the best lines, but Arya had some, the Hound had some, Lady Olenna had good. I mean, it was just really, really well done.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, if I'm distracted, it's only because the heavens have opened up and there's full-on hail happening all around us. So whatever we're about to say
is coming,
has
Brian.
winter is literally raining
Winter
hellfire
is
upon my face
house.
right now. Okay, so let's. What are the different fronts we saw? We talked about the Khaleesi's front.
Arya and the Hound.
Jon Snow. I loved him standing up and saying, "What's up, bro? You want to throw me out or not?"
Yeah, that was another one of the great dialogue lines where he really, you felt like it was the real Jon Snow who's been in front of the walls. Like, you don't know what I've seen.
Yeah.
And this, so you know what? You want to execute me? Fine.
Well, and I love the fact that he's like, yes, I did all of these things in the service of the wall. You going to kill me now or no? And then drop some science.
And Master Aemon?
Yeah. Master Aemon Targaryen.
Yeah, says
how do he wasn't lying. And they're like, well, how do you know he wasn't lying? He says, because I grew up in King's Landing.
This note perfect almost. I can't think of a single bit of this where I cringed. I mean, there are places where I cringed because somebody got stabbed in the eye and it was really gory.
The only bit of dialogue exchange that I didn't buy 100% is when Sansa is in the God's Wood and the drunken knight comes up and be like, by the way, I'm not drunken knight. Here's like a super important thing. It's important to the plot. I got this call on Thursday.
Give you a MacGuffin.
My agent called on Thursday, said I could be on the Game of Thrones. Here's this. That was the only thing that fell out of place.
I didn't feel that bad. I didn't feel that way at the time that I watched it. But now that you're saying it, yeah, if I had to pick a weak spot, that would be it.
It was the weakest. I wouldn't even say it was weak. It was just the least strong of all the spots in there. Man, that whole ending though, with the whole scene, the way it was set up with Arya and the Hound, and the discussion about having her own horse and stuff.
And then just no commentary. She's on a horse.
Oh my God! And I found myself bursting out laughing, and it happened to be right as Bonnie had turned around, and she's like, "What? I was like, "Oh, well, she's got a horse now." Like the ability to set up those moments of genuine surprise and joy just through the directorial storytelling, I think, was exceptional.
And I don't want to out my wife too much here, but she is one to watch television shows while being on laptops, on a phone. This is not an episode you can do that.
No.
Like, you will miss so much because it is so thick with that kind of thing.
Well,
For instance, that was one of the ones where, like you said, Bonnie was like, wait, what happened? And Eileen was like, wait, where'd she get the horse? And I'm like, that's the whole point of the scene right here.
Well, it goes two ways, because Bonnie missed it on the horse, but I missed it because I turned away. Our 2-year-old daughter is running around playing, and I was fussing with something, and Bonnie laughed. I was like, what? And it was right after he got the hand attached that he looks over and you just see him just kind of wave with the hand in the background.
I almost want to not like that because I'm like, well, that's a little silly. It might take me out of the plot, but it didn't.
No,
it's Jaime's character.
It's so exactly Jaime that I could picture. And plus also like seeing Jaime own a little bit, that was one of the biggest moments when reading the books. And again, I don't want to be that guy who's all read the book, but like it was shocking when you got to the third book and for the first time you saw a chapter titled Jaime and you realized you were going to experience Jaime Lannister from Jaime Lannister's point of view. That was a big deal. And I feel like you're starting to see that as him as a sympathetic character in this universe, because he's beyond redemption the first 2 seasons of this.
Well, and now that you say that, I think one of the reasons I may have enjoyed this episode so much is because we are finally getting enough character behind us, and it takes a while in the Song of Ice and Fire for this to happen, that we can see the character growth in action. And that scene between Cersei and Jaime is an example of that for me, where Jaime is just still thinking things are like they were when he left, right? He had this adventure, he got captured, and his whole point has been to get back to Cersei and King's Landing, and he gets back, and she's like, Oh, you don't even know. You're too late. I mean, you're too late.
Well, and
It's
it's
so
and to see
perfectly
the
done, and
inverse
she's
of that.
perfectly in character for how you've gotten to know her. And you see, well, of course, they're going to have this conversation.
And what's funny is you see the inverse of that at the same time, which I don't think they really presented in the books as kind of a parallel, but you see the mirror image of Cersei and Jaime in Tyrion and Shay, where all of a sudden Shay's trying to get busy and Tyrion's just like, no, you don't understand. This is messed up. I'm married to a child who I need to help because,
I got shit on my mind, man.
Exactly. Come on, girl. What are you doing?
I got a headache tonight, Shay.
Let's talk about the guys from what is it, the Sand Snake? What's his name? The guy from not Ventus. Where?
Oh, Prince Oberyn.
Oberyn. Yes. Who's getting busy?
Isn't he the Viper? I think that's what he's called.
Yeah, the Sand Viper. That's what they call
Sand
him.
Viper.
Yeah.
Right.
He actually, I wanted to put him the context I know him in. I would be a spoiler, and there are those who haven't read the book, so I'm not going to say. But we all know he plays a role in the thing later on.
Just got a link from Beatmaster, who sent a /film link about Game of Thrones actor takes over lead in Transporter 4, and so that's why we saw a change.
Oh my God! So that was Dario whoever, and now he's
Dario 1.0.
Yeah, Dario 1.0. Dario 1.0
Naharis.
Man, can you imagine what kind of deal to walk away from Game of Thrones and just say, sorry, not going to happen. I can't do both.
Yeah, because they're going to send dragons after you.
Yeah. All right, let's move forward. Is there anything else about Game of Thrones you wanted to say?
I could probably talk all night, but no, I think we covered it really well. Let's talk about the captain.
That's the C.
That was actually not bad. I think that might actually be intelligible.
No, that made sense.
We're going to talk about Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I saw it. Did you see it in 3D?
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't. I would not have chosen to, but that was the most convenient showing. That was the one that allowed me to get back in time to do this.
Dolby Atmos 3D for me, which was amazing. Dolby
How
Atmos.
are you feeling about 3D these days? I was thinking
I've never cared about it one way or the other. Well, I shouldn't say never, but that's been my opinion for more than a year, which is, if the one that's most convenient is in 3D, I'll see it. I have no problem with that. But if it's not in 3D, I'm not like, oh, I'm so bummed I can't see it in 3D.
Oh, no. Like my default preference is to watch in 2D, and pretty much the only
I
time
don't
I
have
take
that.
3D.
I'm on the fence. I don't care one way or the other.
Oh yeah,
I forget that things are in 3D when I'm watching them in 3D.
I don't know. I would say, like, for example, I would say the only movies that I truly thought I'm so glad I watched this in 3D, I would say How to Train Your Dragon and Avatar. Everything else, I'm like, I don't know, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. Avatar is pretty amazing in 3D because it was intentionally made to be
from the ground up
better in 3D. And most of these other movies are, they put some thought to it now, but they're mostly changed after the fact.
Yeah.
But Captain America, the Winter Soldier blew me away. It surprised me. I went into it with the expectation that I would enjoy it because I enjoyed the first Captain America, but I would not enjoy it as much as, like an Iron Man or certainly not as much as the Avengers, but it would be a good time. And I'd say it's close to one of my favorite Marvel movies now. I feel like they raised the game so much. And part of that may be the fact that they've built up these characters through the other movies and I've gotten to know them. But it just executed very well. It was well paced. It was the Bourne movie of the Marvel superhero universe, but that wasn't a bad thing to me. I thought maybe Robert Redford's character turned on a dime a little quickly and unmotivated for me. But other than that, loved it.
So normally I start off with the things I loved and then sort of put in the things that annoyed me. Let me do the reverse. Let me say some of the things that annoyed me. Some of them are because there were media leaks ahead of time. Some of them are because I saw a preview beforehand, and some of them are because I don't know why. But there was a number of times when I could feel the palpable relief once we finally got to a part of the movie that caught up with the crap I'd either heard of before or predicted in advance.
And that's the kind of thing I know bothers you a lot.
Yeah.
And other things we've talked about.
Yeah, it almost has me in a state of mind where it's like I almost want to adopt the Jeff Kanata attitude of never watch previews, but I don't even think that would have helped because it wasn't the previews that I found out that Robert Redford was a bad guy on this. It was because the freaking news said, hey, Robert Redford just outed himself as a villain in this thing. And I spent the whole movie, like, it wasn't until the end of the second act, I'm like, finally, good. We all know he's a villain. I can let that go. But then, even then, there was stuff like I don't know where I heard of it, but it certainly wasn't from the comic books. But for some reason, the moment they mentioned Bucky, and then 10 minutes later mentioned that there's this mysterious Winter Soldier who's been killing people for 50 years, I instantly was like, well, okay, well, it's got to be Bucky, right? And it wasn't until that moment when they said Bucky that I could finally, again, relax. I was like, oh, thank God, finally, we're all caught up. Like, this entire movie to me was these moments of being all like, I wish I hadn't figured this out. Oh, good. Okay, we're all caught up. Oh, but now I figured this out. Oh, good. All right, now we're done. Having said that, let me say some of the things I truly loved. Truly loved that many of the cultural shifts in our society come not from the government, not from votes, but from popular culture. MTV had more to do with legitimizing interracial relationships than the civil rights movement of the 1960s. It's the fact that after the fact, they're able to legitimize these things that matters. And in that regard, I absolutely adored that this entire movie was either an allegory about the Bush presidency or an allegory about the Obama presidency. Regardless, it doesn't matter because both those assholes have killed people that they're shooting drones down or whatever. And I loved that this movie essentially was a metaphor for the Snowden revelations, where they're saying like, no, man, that's not the way to do it. Don't just take all our secrets and throw it out there. You got to work from the inside or what. Adored all of that. I loved Captain America representing the actual views of the American spirit as a countercultural icon. I absolutely adored him going underground. I adored them. Every single superhero movie, the first thing they want to do is figure some excuse for everyone to take off their masks. This one, they had from the beginning. He went underground. He can't go around wearing his ridiculous stars and stripes. And when he does, he's got to steal it from the Smithsonian. I adored all of that. I think that there's a lot about this movie that was absolutely wonderful. Not the least of which, was Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides.
Eileen and I both were like, did you see? Yeah, did you see? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
What a lovely wink, right? You know,
totally. And
it was out of universe, but fun.
It was perfect.
I wonder how much of the script was done and in ink when the Snowden revelations hit, because they hit in June and they had to be in production on this movie already. The reason I wonder that is because the fact that you and I both looked at this as a metaphor for the Snowden revelations, but probably a lot of it, if not most of it, was written as a metaphor for the Assange leaks.
Yes.
Or for Bradley Manning, means that we have tapped into something that is a trend, not an event.
Correct.
And that even further bolsters what you're talking about, where popular culture is the way we speak to ourselves about the issues of the day.
Agreed. Totally agreed. And I didn't even think about the fact that it was a trend on all those things. The mere fact that it's normal, I don't know, to me it felt weirdly like, I'm somebody who gets real caught up in freedom of information and almost anarcho-libertarian ridiculousness, power to the people, so on. But it's like, it was almost a deeply emotional experience to see this story being presented in a popcorn, pop cultural thing, as if the idea that the people should know the full story is so natural that of course it belonged in a blockbuster thriller. And that was utterly delightful to me. But that is neither here nor there for most of the audience.
I think it is. I mean, I think that Captain America runs the risk of being polarizing because it could come out and say, this is the way America should be, or this is the way America should be in a political way. And I think that what they did here is walk the line of the political parties are not what's at issue.
Right.
It's the direction and purpose of the country that's at issue. And what does Captain America stand for? He stands for the rights of the people. Now, that message still might rub you the wrong way, depending on how you think about things. But it wasn't coming out and saying Edward Snowden is right. You know what I mean? It was saying, here's the parts of the issue that Captain America thinks are right, and for these reasons. And he's even a little uncomfortable with Scarlett Johansson and like, I'm not sure I trust you. I'm not sure you're doing the right thing.
Right.
Because you have weird motivations and you're a murky character, which is part of it too.
Yeah. Okay. So things that were a delightful surprise, and at this point, I don't know why, but I am just a total junkie I just want surprise in everything at all times.
You're addicted to surprise,
I am,
Brian.
dude. I am. Like that's
to give it up.
That's the most delicious thing is as Teller put it, when you could put 2 and 2 in front of me and convince me it's 5 and then reveal the truth 4. I enjoyed seeing the Falcon show up. I enjoyed him as a surprise. I got that a little bit spoiled because Justin Robert Young, in setting up the first scene, he couched it as Captain America versus another superhero. And it's like, that opening scene, I never would have thought that guy was a superhero, except for the way Justin had said it. And therefore, I spent the whole time waiting to be like, well, I assume he's a superhero because I heard that and so on. The Bucky thing was a bit of a disappointment on the surprise. What else? I got to tell. Oh, I'll tell you what else I loved was seeing practically how they made me believe that a shield, which we can all agree is the dumbest weapon in all of comic book history, they made me believe in the shield because they spent so many times of people shooting at him, and I was like, wow, in that situation, it'd be
really
very
bulletproof.
practical to have a shield.
Well, and they had the opponents use the shield against him enough times to be like, oh, it's a good weapon in anybody's hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to submit that I think the shield is a better choice of weapon than the Lariat of Truth.
Wait, dude,
Wonder Woman?
Are you kidding me? If you can get me to tell the truth of any politician, that's money in the bank, sir. What would you have, a shield to...
She has a rope that makes you tell the truth and arm bracelets to defend block bullets.
Look, you want to start awesome. A fight against Wonder Woman somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right?
Come on, man. Yeah. By the way, watch the movie first and then come back to
DC. Come
on. Yeah, I'll say that I enjoyed this, and I do understand how if I was still watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this would be a big deal. I don't know. It's not going to drag me into watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't think.
No, I don't think it's meant to. I don't think it's the kind of, well, maybe it is. Maybe they're trying to do that. But if you were already sort of like, I really want to like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and you were caught up like I am, this is going to make you really excited to watch next week's episode, because this next episode is a tie-in to this movie.
You don't say. I seem to have gotten on the internet at some point in the last 24 hours, and it seemed like there was no corner I could be on the internet that they didn't remind me that there would be a tie-in with this movie.
Hey, did I tell you it's a tie-in?
Okay, good.
Well, because, I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s gone at the end of this movie, right? This is the spoiler in time. I get to say that. And so how does that work?
No, fair enough. Or at least certainly S.H.I.E.L.D. as we knew it, is gone.
But yeah, I mean, next week, Coulson and friends are going to be like, oh, well, so, Nick Fury ripped apart S.H.I.E.L.D. What do we do now? You know, that's interesting to me. What are they going to do? So it's kind of the same thing that made you want to know, like, what's Coulson's backstory? How did he survive? I don't know that they executed on that as well as I would have liked, but they finally got to a point in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where I'm intrigued, because they've solved part of the mystery, but gave me a new mystery that I'm interested in.
What did you think?
Because it's a wider part of the universe rather than just within the TV show.
What did you think of the double tap for the special endings before and after the end credits? Did you stick around for all of this?
No, of course. Eileen and I were, because, they do the credits and then they gave you that little look. Which one was first? I can't remember.
The first one was, they're like, who cares about those guys? I'm doing like a racist Asian stereotype for my German. This is how bad I am with accents. It doesn't matter.
Oh, right. It's Hydra. It doesn't matter if it's Hydra or something else. We will continue our research.
Right. For example, these people who definitely are not Quicksilver and some version of the Scarlet Witch, because those are owned by Fox. And they're definitely not mutants. There will be something else.
That would be a different series owned by a different studio.
That's right.
Yeah. So I definitely like was looking at people after that played and everybody started leaving. I was like, what is wrong with you people? Like, this is a Marvel movie. You know there's going to be more. But yeah, me and about 8 other people were left in the theater, and everybody after the end was like muttering like, it's a Marvel movie. I don't know why people left. You know,
Yeah. Well, okay, in their defense of everybody who left, even Joss Whedon, and we got into a fight about this over on the Weird Things podcast, even Joss Whedon didn't think to have something after the end of the credits at Avengers, because they had the whole like half credits, then they went to Thane to set that business up, then they went to credits, and they're all like, oh, you don't have anything at the end of the credits? And he's like, well, no, we did the thing with Thane. And they're like, oh, but on your other movies, there was like a thing at the end of it. And so then after all the shooting was done, they went and shot the shawarma scene or whatever. So if you left, I mean, I don't blame them, because I left after that, and I didn't see the shawarma scene the first time around anyway.
I saw the shawarma scene the first time, and I didn't realize it was an afterthought. It worked really well for an afterthought.
Let me say one other thing. I really liked, if you are going to have some kind of scene that goes back and tells us the story of the hero and explains to us that the hero's conflicted about understanding his own past or whatever, you cannot do better than the way they set up that whole fake Smithsonian exhibit around Captain America.
That was nifty. Yeah,
it was so good.
I knew what they were doing still. It wasn't like, oh, they totally like did that without me knowing. I'm like, oh, this is where we're going to tell the backstory. But you're right. It was elegantly done.
Well, especially since, and imagine, you know, that experience for the Winter Soldier / Bucky going and seeing his own stupid face all over the place. I mean, I thought those were good echoes. I thought that was a good set piece. And it was, I don't know that we've seen something like that too often in the movies before.
I do really like that the bunker in the abandoned military base just felt like somebody who was in set design had played Portal 2 a lot.
Oh my God. No, it was great. And I love the joke, the War Games gag where she makes the joke and then explains the joke. And she's like, no, I got it. I saw the movie. I hated.
Also, well, that was a callback to the list at the beginning, right, where you see like Steve Jobs is on his list. Like there was some good stuff.
Well, and also that also calls back to the Avengers, right? Because that was the running gag, was they would mention stuff and then have to explain it to him, right, and then they made a Wizard of Oz reference that he got. But having said that, I have never gone in a Marvel movie from this level of excitement about like, oh my God, 1970s computers, that's so great or whatever. And then they flip a switch and it's like, I'm Hydra, the bad guy from the last movie, but now I'm in a 1970s computer. Like instantly it's like, all right.
No, but that's what was so Portal about it, right? That's GLaDOS's, I don't want to spoil Portal 2, but...
Yeah, it's not like it's Spoilerin time or anything.
But we didn't promise to spoil Portal 2. But there's a parallel there.
I don't know. I
thought it was a triumph.
They had me believing the hype going into it, and then it's like, also it's the Nazis again in the future. Like I'm like, really?
Oh, come on. I'm a sucker for a like space-based zombie future Nazi.
Okay, I mean, granted, if you had sold it, there's more than one space-based future Nazi that they could have gone with. It didn't have to be the same Hydra again, is all I'm trying to say.
Hey, but at least they didn't do like, oh, those computers could never do those graphics. Like, it was ASCII. It was ASCII art.
Sure. It was. Also, I was definitely disappointed. I'm like, Nazis again. Why has it always got to be Nazis?
It's like snakes.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that didn't bother me. I liked that. I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah, the bad guy should be Nazis because it's Captain America. Come on.
No, but that's just it. I don't know. I feel like they could have replaced it with any number of other MacGuffins, but that's just me, and I don't blame them. They're doing just fine.
They're just doing.
Talk to me about the Shield, man.
All right. Is this? Oh wait, here.
The S. That's a good S.
Thank you. Shield episode 6. I can't even tell you why exactly, except maybe that the fact that I've gotten to know these characters now over 6 episodes. I get more depth. I get more feeling. There's more layers there. But at the end of that episode, for the first time, I was reaching to press play on episode 7.
Just
I was like, I gotta find out where they're going now.
So for me, on the Shield, I was pretty much on board by the time where you are, right? So I was all the way in. The Wire took me much longer than you for me to get into where I was automatically hitting. Yeah,
it's the funny thing, right? Because I was into The Wire almost from episode 1.
Oh, not me, man. The Wire was homework the entire first episode, or entire first season. And then even the second season, it was like the third or fourth episode. I'm like, no, I get it. They're telling a big story. Let's go. But the fact that for you is the difference that now you speak all the characters and now you just want to see what their plays are.
That's probably part of it. I'm looking at the episode descriptions to kind of ring my bell here about it. I know with episode 6, the fact that we broke out of those, yeah, we get it. Vic Mackey doesn't respect Dutch, and Dutch is a little bit of a geek, and he's really good in the interrogation room, and we broke out of that.
Yeah.
And we didn't break out of it with like, Vic has come around, and no, he really likes Dutch. Like, no, he still doesn't like Dutch. But they were forced to work together on something in a way that was, you would expect those two characters, now that you get to know them, to work together. And I like that. I like that we got to see the department do something different. I like that there was a subplot about the broken pipes that really didn't matter so much to the plot, but it just showed like, this is the kind of infrastructure you're living in this universe. There was a lot more depth to the series in that particular episode. And I think that's one of the things that caught me, like, all right, now these characters are not just paper cutouts of police procedural characters, the bad cop and the wild card and the straight arrow. Like they're starting to we're starting to see around those edges a little
If you liked these bizarre mashups, and again, like it's a cliche of storytelling where you get two characters who don't like each other that are trapped in an elevator together or whatever, I'd like to think that there's a decent twist on it that you'll see repeatedly throughout The Shield, where you will have characters who their long-term motivations are absolutely at odds with each other, but their short-term motivations say that they both want to put this thing away for their own different reasons. I think if you enjoyed that about the last couple episodes, I think you're really going to enjoy the next 5 seasons of this, because it very much is this constant twisting back and forth of like, you're in it together, you're out of it together, you're on it for this, you're off it for this. Finally, I can throw down the hammer on this other thing.
Well, and you get to see in episode 7 too, you get to see Vic and Vendrell go out, into another precinct. And again, you get to see them interacting in a different kind of situation with a different kind of procedure. And they're like, no, this is the way we do things, to a certain amount of effect and to a certain amount of detriment. And I think it's Vendrell gets burned at the end of that episode, if I'm remembering right.
Oh, shoot. Has that already happened?
I don't think it's happened. It's been set up. They've basically gone to Vic and like, you got to sacrifice him. Sorry, dude.
I'm not going to say anything because I just realized that what I thought you were saying would be a spoiler. And I was surprised you'd already gotten to that point, but I'm not going to talk about it.
All right. Well, that is it for Spoilerin time. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you have been spoiled in the best way possible.
Yeah, the best Spoilerin, guaranteed.
Soak in it.
Soak it, suckers.